I tightened my grip on the worn leather strap of my old tote, feeling the rough edges press into my palm, and told myself I was ready. The brown coat, draped over my shoulders, frayed at the cuffs and faded at the seams, wasn't just clothing today, it was a mask. This wasn't a normal family visit. Today, I was testing my in-laws, and the outcome could change everything. Michael was waiting for me at the bus stop, looking more nervous than he did when pitching to investors. When he spotted me stepping down, his brow furrowed. "Are you sure you want to do this?" We could just tell them the truth. "Mom will understand eventually." I shook my head, adjusting the old wool scarf around my neck. "No, Mike. You know how your mom has seen me since day one. In her eyes, I'm just some small-town girl with no career, no fancy family name. Today, I want to see how she treats me when she thinks I'm exactly what she's always assumed." He exhaled, the sound almost a sigh of surrender, and took my hand gently. His warm brown eyes held a mix of love and unease. "Just remember, she isn't a bad person. She's just old school." I gave him a soft smile, though my stomach churned. "I know, and I'm not here to humiliate anyone. I just need to know if there's a real chance for us to be a family." The Turner house came into view at the end of a tree-lined street in Buckhead, one of those elegant, slightly dated southern homes with red brick walls, a gray slate roof, and white-trimmed windows that gleamed in the winter sunlight. I drew in a deep breath, clutched my tote tighter, and tried to look smaller, humbler, even a little out of place. The front door swung open before we could even ring the bell. Caroline Turner, Michael's mother, stood there with the sharp, assessing gaze of a woman who had spent decades teaching in a private academy. Her eyes swept over me from head to toe, pausing on the worn coat, the scuffed shoes, and finally landing on my face with a flicker of something I couldn't quite name. Disappointment, maybe? "Olivia," she said after a tiny pause, her voice clipped and formal. "Come in. Please leave your shoes by the door." Behind her, Harold Turner appeared with a kind smile that softened the tension in the room. "Welcome, dear. Rough trip." His deep voice carried a warmth his wife's didn't. I stepped inside, forcing a polite smile, smoothing down the old coat to make it look even more wrinkled. I was playing a role, and it felt strange, exhilarating and nerve-wracking all at once. We settled in the living room, a space so meticulously arranged it felt like a museum. Every pillow fluffed, every family portrait perfectly aligned. Caroline poured tea into delicate china cups, her eyes occasionally flicking toward me as if cataloging every detail. "So, Olivia," she began, voice even but edged, "where are you working these days?" I lowered my gaze, my voice quiet. "Just an office job, really. Mostly answering phones and filing paperwork. Nothing special." One of her brows arched, the corners of her mouth lifting into what looked like confirmation of a long-held belief. "Ah, well, stability is good. Even if the pay isn't great, I suppose." I nodded slightly, feeling the burn in my throat, but staying in character. Michael shifted beside me, ready to jump in, but I placed a hand on his leg under the table and shook my head slightly. Caroline leaned back, swirling her tea, her tone casual but cutting. "And where are you two living now? Still renting? You know, houses aren't getting any cheaper in the city." I told Michael he could have chosen differently. Someone more established. "Remember the Walker girl, Michael? She just passed the bar exam." Her words landed like tiny needles, sharp but expected. I had known this moment was coming, and I needed to hear it all, every judgment, every assumption, before the truth came out. Caroline's words hung in the air, delicate and sharp like glass about to shatter. I kept my smile steady, though every muscle in my face begged to flinch. Michael stiffened beside me, jaw tight, and I could feel his pulse racing through the palm of his hand resting on his knee. "Mom," he said slowly, "Olivia and I are happy where we are. We're doing fine." Caroline tilted her head slightly, her lips pressing together as if she were holding back an unkind remark, though clearly she wasn't. "Happy? Happiness doesn't pay the mortgage, sweetheart." I just worry. You deserve stability, someone who can keep up with you. I lifted my teacup and took a slow sip to keep from saying something I might regret. My plan was working. This wasn't about fighting back. It was about listening, really hearing what she thought when she believed I had nothing to offer. Her eyes landed on my coat again, her gaze narrowing. You know, Olivia, I always say first impressions last forever. When I first met you, I thought, well, she's nice enough, but clearly from a small town. I figured you'd grow into the city life, but I guess some things don't change. The remark felt like a small slap, even though I'd invited it by dressing like I had nothing. I took a deep breath, kept my expression soft, and nodded as if I agreed. Michael's patience finally cracked. Mom, enough. You don't know everything about her. Caroline set down her teacup with a soft click. And what exactly do I need to know, Michael? She works a basic job. You too are still renting. And she gestured toward me. She didn't even dress up for meeting her in-laws. What am I supposed to think? I placed my hand gently on Michael's arm and whispered, "It's okay, let her speak." He looked at me like I'd lost my mind, but I hadn't. I needed to see this through. Caroline folded her arms. You're both adults, but marriage is serious. You can't just live on love and paychecks that barely cover rent. And children? What happens when kids come along? Do you want to raise them in what? A rented apartment with hand-me-down furniture. Her words weren't shouted, but they were heavy, full of judgment. Michael's cheeks flushed. We're doing fine, Mom. Stop acting like Olivia is, Caroline interrupted sharply. Like she's what? Unprepared? Unsuitable? I'm just being honest. You had other options, Michael. Remember Claire Walker? She came from a good family, had a trust fund, went to Duke. That's enough, Michael snapped, standing so abruptly his chair scraped across the hardwood. We're leaving. But I reached for his wrist, keeping my voice calm, almost gentle. No, let's stay. I want to hear her out. All of it. Caroline blinked, clearly startled by my composure. You want to hear it? Yes. I smiled faintly. I think sometimes it's good to be honest, even when it's uncomfortable. Caroline hesitated, then sat back. Well, honesty is what families need. I just don't want to see my son struggling because someone couldn't match his ambition. That's all. I nodded again, as if absorbing every word. Inside, my stomach twisted, but not from anger, from sadness. I could see it now, so clearly. Caroline wasn't cruel because she hated me. She was harsh because she was scared, afraid her son might have a harder life than she imagined for him. Still hurt. The rest of the meal passed in awkward silence, broken only by Harold's attempts at small talk about the weather and the garden. Michael stayed tense, ready to explode again, but I kept giving him subtle signals to let it go for now. Finally, after dessert, Caroline leaned back and checked the time. I almost forgot. My show is about to start. Michael groaned quietly. I'd heard about this before, her obsession with a particular talk show that aired nightly. She clicked on the TV, muttering about how this one was supposed to be inspirational. I sipped my tea, wondering if I should just excuse myself to the restroom, until I heard the host's voice booming cheerfully. Tonight, we have an incredible guest, one of the brightest young entrepreneurs in education technology. Please welcome Olivia Turner, founder and CEO of EdFuture. The camera panned to a woman in a cream-colored suit, her hair neatly pinned, makeup perfect. She smiled at the host with easy confidence. My smile, my face. Caroline froze, blinking rapidly. She looked at the screen, then at me sitting right there in her living room, in a shabby coat and scuffed shoes. Her lips parted, but no words came out. The host continued. Olivia built her company from scratch, expanding to serve over 1 million students nationwide, with more than 300 employees and partnerships with state education boards. She's also a mother to an 8-month-old baby girl, Chloe, and wife to software engineer Michael Turner, who also happens to lead development at EdFuture. Caroline's hands trembled against the armrest. What is this?" she whispered. I set down my cup slowly, my voice soft. "That's me. The job you never wanted to hear about? That's what I've been doing." Caroline's eyes darted back to the screen, where the host asked me, my television self, about work-life balance and breaking barriers as a young female CEO. You're, Caroline stammered. "Yes." I folded my hands neatly on my lap. "I wanted you to know me for who I am, not what I earn or the title on my business card." But you didn't want to hear it. For the first time that night, silence didn't feel like a burden. It felt like the air itself had shifted, waiting for something new to grow. Caroline sat frozen, her hands clutching the edge of the sofa cushion like it might keep her grounded. On the television, my onstage self was laughing softly with the host, describing the challenges of launching an education technology company while balancing family life. "People thought I was crazy," the me on screen said, "but I knew kids everywhere deserved better tools to learn, especially in underserved communities. And when my husband said, 'I believe in you,' that was all I needed." The camera panned back to the host, who nodded approvingly. "And now you have one of the fastest growing companies in the field, multiple awards, and you just closed a multi-million-dollar deal with the state of Georgia. That's extraordinary." Caroline's jaw slackened. Her eyes darted between the television and me, sitting on her sofa in that deliberately shabby coat. I held her gaze calmly, my hands clasped together in my lap. "You're the Olivia Turner," she whispered, as though saying it out loud might shatter the room. I nodded gently. "The same one you've been watching on TV. The one you thought was just answering phones and filing papers." Her face turned pale. "But you said, I thought you were just ordinary." I finished for her, my voice soft but steady. "That's what you wanted to see, isn't it? Someone ordinary. Someone who couldn't possibly match Michael's potential. Someone you could feel justified in looking down on." Caroline's lips trembled. "I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did," I interrupted, not sharply but firmly. "And that's okay, Caroline. People make assumptions. I wanted to see those assumptions for myself, without titles or money getting in the way. That's why I wore this old coat, carried this worn-out bag. Because I wanted to know if you could accept me for me." Harold finally spoke, his gentle voice breaking the tension. "Olivia, you're the CEO of that company? The one that helped kids in rural schools get laptops and internet access?" I nodded, smiling faintly. "Yes, sir. That's us. Michael's my head of development. We built the company together from our living room 5 years ago, and it's grown. A lot." Michael squeezed my hand and looked at his mother. "Mom, I tried to tell you before. You never wanted to hear it. You cut me off every time I mentioned her work." Caroline blinked rapidly, as if hoping she might wake up from a dream. "On the TV, I was describing EdFuture's new free coding courses for underprivileged girls." "And you have a baby, right?" the host asked on screen. "Yes," the me on screen replied with a bright smile. "Chloe. She's 8 months old. We actually named her after my grandmother, who taught me to always work hard and believe in people even when they don't believe in you yet." Caroline's hand flew to her mouth. "Chloe in honor of your grandmother?" I nodded. "Yes, but I didn't tell you because you didn't want to know. You never asked about my family, Caroline. You only asked about what I lacked. You wanted to measure me against some imaginary standard." Her eyes welled with tears. "Olivia, I'm so sorry. I thought you were some small-town girl who married above her station. I was afraid Michael would end up struggling because of you." Michael leaned forward, his tone gentle but resolute. "Mom, I'm not struggling. I'm thriving. Because of her. Because she believed in me enough to start something from scratch. We're building something amazing together, and it's not just the business. It's our life." Caroline wiped at her cheeks, smudging her mascara. "I don't know what to say." I placed my hands on my knees and leaned slightly forward. You don't have to say anything right now. I didn't come here to hurt you. I came because I wanted a real relationship, not one based on half-truths or resentment. But I needed to know if you could love me even when you thought I had nothing to offer. Caroline's chin quivered. She turned back toward the television where the interview wrapped up, my onstage self saying, "You can't judge someone by the coat they wear or the car they drive." Potential hides in unexpected places. The show ended, fading into commercials, leaving a silence so thick it felt alive. Finally, Caroline whispered, "I judged you and I was wrong. I've been wrong since the day I met you." I reached for Michael's hand, squeezing it gently before speaking. "You were protecting your son in your own way. I get it, but families aren't built on protection alone. They're built on trust and kindness." Caroline sniffled, pulling a tissue from her sleeve. "Can you forgive me, Olivia?" I paused, searching her face. She looked smaller somehow, as if her sharp edges had finally softened. "Yes, I can. But I'm not forgiving you because I'm successful. I'm forgiving you because I know you love Michael, and because I don't want our daughter growing up thinking her family is divided." Caroline let out a sob, covering her face with both hands. "I didn't know. I just didn't know who you were." I stood and stepped closer, resting a hand on her shoulder. "You didn't need to know who I was on paper. You just needed to know me." She lowered her hands slowly, tears still streaking her cheeks. "I want to, Olivia. I want to know you, the real you, not the one I made up in my head." I smiled softly. "Good, because I want that too." Michael wrapped an arm around me, pulling me close as Caroline stood shakily, like her legs had forgotten how to work. She reached out and, for the first time ever, hugged me. It wasn't a light, polite hug either. It was full, trembling, and real. When she pulled back, she whispered, "Thank you for giving me a chance to see who you are and for not giving up on me." I smiled, feeling the knot in my chest loosen. "We all deserve a second chance, Caroline." The house felt different after that hug, as if the walls themselves had exhaled. The sharp tension that had greeted us at the door had softened, replaced by something fragile but real, like the first shoots of green after a hard winter. Caroline sat back down, dabbing her eyes with a tissue, while Harold quietly poured fresh tea as though trying to anchor the room in normalcy. Michael sat beside me, his arms still draped protectively around my shoulders, though I could feel him relax for the first time all evening. Caroline cleared her throat, her voice trembling. "Olivia, I judged you because I was afraid. I spent years telling Michael he needed stability. I built this picture in my head, what his life should look like, who he should marry. And you didn't fit it. It scared me." I reached for her hand gently. "You don't have to explain everything tonight. I understand more than you think. You've loved Michael his whole life. Of course, you wanted to protect him. But sometimes protecting someone means letting them choose their own path, even if it's not what we imagined." She nodded, tears threatening again. "I didn't just misjudge you. I shut you out. I never even asked about your life, your work, your dreams. I saw your coat, your shoes, and I thought I had you figured out. I'm ashamed of that." I smiled softly, my thumb brushing over her hand. "It's okay to be wrong, Caroline. What matters is what we do after we realize it." The silence that followed wasn't heavy anymore. It felt tender. Harold broke it gently, like a man easing open a door. "You know, Olivia, when I saw that interview, I realized something. You built something from nothing, and you did it for kids. That's something to be proud of." Caroline looked at him, then back at me. "Proud," she echoed quietly. "I don't think I've ever said that to you, Olivia. But I am proud. Proud of you, proud that you're my daughter-in-law." My throat tightened unexpectedly. I had braced myself for hostility, even cruelty, but not for this sudden warmth. I squeezed her hand. "Thank you, Caroline. That means more than you know." Michael smiled, pressing a kiss to the side of my head. See, Mom? She's not just the woman I married, she's my partner. Everything we have, we built together. Caroline nodded, still holding my hand. I see that now, and I'm sorry it took a television show to open my eyes. She let out a shaky laugh. I feel ridiculous. I laughed with her, shaking my head. Life has funny ways of teaching you us, doesn't it? Honestly, I didn't want you to learn about me from TV. I wanted you to see me, the person sitting at your table, even if you thought I had nothing. Because if you could love me then, I'd know it was real. She leaned closer, her eyes softening. And I almost ruined that chance. Can you forgive me? I smiled. I already did. The moment you hugged me, it felt like everything heavy between us just dropped. Harold clapped his hands lightly, almost ceremoniously. Well, now that we've cleared the air, I think it's time we talk about the real star of the show, Chloe. Where's that little angel of yours? Michael grinned. Home with the nanny. She's probably fast asleep by now, but tomorrow you can meet her. I think she'd like her grandma. Caroline's lip trembled again. Grandma, she whispered. I'd like that very much. The following afternoon, Caroline and Harold pulled up to our home, their car packed with an almost comical number of shopping bags. Caroline stepped out holding a teddy bear bigger than our 8-month-old. I didn't know what she likes, so I brought options, she said sheepishly. Michael chuckled. Mom, you didn't have to. Nonsense, she cut him off gently. It's my first time meeting my granddaughter. You only get one first impression. I met her halfway. Chloe balanced on my hip. Caroline froze for a moment, just staring. She's beautiful, she whispered, voice breaking. She looks just like you, Olivia. Chloe reached out a curious little hand toward Caroline, who instinctively stepped forward and took her. The baby studied her face, then, without hesitation, pressed a tiny hand to Caroline's cheek. Caroline gasped, tears spilling down again. She's so warm and trusting. She doesn't even know me yet, and she trusts me. I touched her arm softly. She knows family when she feels it. The rest of the day was a blur of laughter, baby giggles, and stories. Caroline asked about Chloe's favorite foods, her nap schedule, her first word, which, for the record, was da-da, and listened with wide-eyed wonder to everything. Harold assembled a playpen he had bought on the way, while Michael grilled burgers in the backyard like it was a family reunion. At one point, Caroline pulled me aside while Harold entertained Chloe with a rattle. Olivia, she said, her voice tender, I was wrong about you. Completely wrong. And now I see, maybe I was wrong about myself, too. I thought I was this open-minded, caring person, but I wasn't. You gave me a chance to be better. Thank you for that. I smiled, tears stinging my own eyes. You're already better, Caroline. Look at you with Chloe. That's what matters. What we do now, not what we did before. She hugged me again, and this time it felt natural, like hugging family. From that day on, Caroline came by twice a week, each time bringing something new for Chloe, sometimes a little toy, sometimes just a batch of homemade biscuits. Harold repaired a loose gate in our backyard one Saturday, insisting he needed something to do. One afternoon, as I watched Caroline and Chloe build a tower of blocks, I realized how much had shifted. The woman who once looked at me and saw only not enough now saw me as her daughter-in-law and maybe even as a friend. Do you remember what I said the other night? I asked Caroline as we sipped tea after Chloe's nap about how families are built on trust and kindness. She nodded. I smiled. That's what we're doing right now, building something new, and I'm grateful for it. Caroline reached over and squeezed my hand. Me too, Olivia. More than you know. A few weeks later, we drove to my hometown so Caroline and Harold could meet my parents. On the way, Caroline fiddled nervously with her pearls. What if they don't like me? After everything I said about you, what if they know? I glanced back from the passenger seat and smiled. They'll love you. My mom once said people are like books. You can't judge them by their covers. I think you two will get along just fine. And they did. My mother and Caroline bonded instantly over gardening and Southern literature, while Harold and my father debated whether the Braves had a shot at the playoffs this year. That night, as we sat around my parents' old oak dining table, I looked at Michael, then at Chloe asleep in her travel crib, then at Caroline laughing with my mom, and I felt something I hadn't expected to feel so soon. Peace. Real, healing peace. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I stood outside on the porch of my parents' house, looking up at the wide Georgia sky. The air smelled faintly of pine and warm earth, and for the first time in years, I felt completely still inside. Michael came out, wrapping his arms around me from behind. "You're quiet," he whispered. I leaned back into him, smiling softly. "I'm just thinking about how much has changed in so little time. A few weeks ago, your mom barely looked me in the eye, and now she's inside, helping my mom plan a joint birthday party for Chloe." Michael chuckled. "Yeah, she's going to spoil Chloe rotten." I tilted my head to look at him. "Are you okay with that?" "More than okay," he said, kissing the side of my head. "You gave her a chance to change. A lot of people would have walked away after what you said that night. But you stayed. You let her see who you are." I thought about that old brown coat, still hanging in her closet like a relic of who I used to be, or maybe who I still was deep down. I wanted her to see me, not the CEO, not the salary, not the headlines, just me. Michael squeezed me tighter. "She saw you, and I think she saw herself, too, saw the kind of person she wanted to be for Chloe." We stood there in silence for a while, listening to the soft chirp of crickets, until I finally whispered, "It was worth it, all of it." When we returned home, Caroline and Harold visited almost every week. Caroline often arrived with a list of recipes she wanted to teach me, while Harold came with tools to fix things that didn't need fixing. Chloe adored them both, and they adored her right back. One afternoon, as Caroline rocked Chloe to sleep, she looked up at me and whispered, "Thank you for naming her Chloe. I don't deserve that kind of honor, but I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to." I smiled. "You don't have to try so hard, Caroline. You're already doing it, just by being here, by loving her." Her eyes shimmered as she looked down at the baby nestled in her arms. I guess sometimes it takes being humbled to realize what really matters. Not who has the biggest house or the fanciest title, but who shows up for family. I nodded, my throat tightening. Exactly. Sometimes I still think about that night, the night I showed up wearing an old coat and let myself be judged. It hurt, but it also revealed something important. People can change if we give them the space to. I learned that healing doesn't always come from winning arguments or proving people wrong. Sometimes it comes quietly from listening, from letting someone face their own assumptions, and from forgiving when they finally see the truth. And as I watched Caroline and Harold become the grandparents Chloe deserved, I knew I'd made the right choice that night, to show up humbly, to wait and to hope. Because in the end, family isn't about how we start. It's about what we choose to build together.